Sup, this is Military Geeks.
What's up?
On this podcast, we will talk about military things, vehicles, new weaponry, and all that sort of stuff. Stuff we like. And for our first topic, what do we want to talk about?
Let's go with tanks.
Tanks, okay. What's one you like? What's one of the tanks you like?
The Sherman.
Sherman.
World War II.
The World War II Sherman. I like that tank too. What is it? Is it like 8 tons?
I don't know.
How heavy is the Sherman tank? I say 8 tons.
Oh wow.
30 tons says
30.
the AI
we weren't
overview.
Even close. Let's go to not
It
Wikipedia.
says 66,000 pounds.
Do not do Wikipedia.
Yeah, we're getting a lot. 70 tons. Okay.
70 tons. So it's more than 8 tons, I'd say.
Yeah, I was off. I think that's the M22. Not the F22, but the M22. And then it ranges depending on the variation you have. It ranges from a 75 millimeter gun to a 105. Am I correct? 108. Geez, that's pretty big.
Mostly carries explosive rounds, which is what I've heard. That's only on the 108 version.
Do you know why that is?
I don't know why that is. I just know that's that.
So, why they used to carry explosive rounds, one of the reasons is so when they hit a target, anyone standing around it would be killed, and the target itself. Because Germans, back in World War II, Nazi Germany, they would always have people around and in the tank, always. And they would also have smaller vehicles like motorcycles and Jeeps, because Jeeps also kind of originated from Germany around those tanks. So those explosive rounds could also kill and injure some of the people around it. So that's pretty cool.
Also, you gotta say that in the Panzers, the early Panzers, they didn't protect their ammo very well. So if it penetrated and exploded, everybody in the tank would be dead, but also it would be completely destroyed by the ammo exploding.
That is true. They did not protect their ammo very well. By World War II, they were getting better, but they were more focused on gunpowder and speed, because the earliest Panzers would get up to like 35 miles an hour, right?
Yeah.
And America was one of the nations that was more focused on armor, because the Sherman had an armor thickness of 104 millimeters?
Yes, that was the front.
And that was the front, yep.
Sides was 75.
The gun was like 250 on the later versions.
Yes.
And the Sherman only hit a top speed of 12 miles an hour, which was not very fast.
Like, I could run faster than that.
You could run faster than that. I personally like the T-34, which was a Russian tank, and it was pretty good, but I like it because of how it was built. It was built in a shape that allowed any rounds to be shot at it to be easily deflected away. Because all around the tank, you can search this up if you're wondering, the T-34, all angles on the tank were pointed up at like a 35-degree angle. So any rounds that would hit the side of it, it wasn't as likely to penetrate, but it was still a quick tank. And Russians were focused on that, getting their tanks quick. Do you have anything to add on to that?
Yeah, so speaking of quick and the armor thing, today with our tanks, with the M4A1 or the M1A1, it has that degree armor on it, and it can go 45 miles an hour, was it?
Yes. Like 45, yeah.
You're like, that's not very fast. But if you get in your car and start going 45, it's pretty fast.
And that's a 30 to 40-ton tank.
Yeah, it's pretty heavy.
Depending on fully loaded and stocked with supplies. And then another tank is I forget what it is. But it's a German tank. And What was it?
SIG?
No. It's a newer tank. To show other countries how stable their barrel was, this was like 10 years ago. They put a full beer bottle on the end of the cannon and drove across really bumpy stuff with it, and the beer bottle stayed on the cannon and stayed completely full. They didn't spill a drop, which was pretty insane.
No,
the auto balance.
Yeah, the auto aim is OP, but earlier tanks, they were really good. Like, nothing could beat a Panzer.
No. Germans always, up until the end of World War II, always had the best tanks.
Yeah, but then...
The Tiger, the Panther, all those.
They made, like, the big, what was it called? The Gustav?
The Gustav cannon, yeah.
And then that was a crap design.
They used a 40-inch cannon round for that.
And you're like,
Gustav.
Okay, well... Go get a ruler or something, tape measure, because the ruler won't work. Get a tape measure and see how big that is. But
40 inches is huge, and that's the circumference. So that's not even the height. That's just the circumference, how wide the round was.
And it could only be moved on railroad tracks.
This thing was so huge that it could only be moved on railroad tracks. And as far as I know, it could only be fired once, and then they had to reload it, and that took 8 minutes.
It took a while.
8 minutes to reload it. They didn't even get done with their second reload till they just quit it. They just quit.
But when they made that, the USA started to make better tanks, because the tank that is like the earliest, one of the best, is the M18. That was a really good tank.
That was really good.
And then we started ascending from that all the way till we had the best tanks in the world. And then we also have the best aviation in the world. So we're pretty stable.
Yes, we have, so far, the U.S. from late World War II till now has had one of the most well-rounded militaries of all time. All the way, from aviation to the sea, to army, to now new space, and the Marines, and the Coast Guard. We are probably one of the most protected nations, and a cool fact about that is there has never been a battle fought in the U.S. besides battles in the Revolutionary War and the Civil War.
That's because nobody can get past...
No one can get in here.
Yeah, and I don't know much about ships, but I know that you go to the beach, right? You look straight out to the ocean. Can't see anything, but that's because of the Earth's curvature that you can only see 3 miles out before it just stops, and you can't see anything else. But there are lines of ships out there that are standing watch and patrol.
Not as much nowadays, but yeah, there's ships stationed every 10 miles, and there's, as far as I know, we have 5 aircraft carriers, 1 near DC on the East Coast, 1 on the West Coast, 1 down near the Gulf of Mexico, and that would be 3. Then we have 1 towards Europe, and then I think there is an extra one over near Hawaii.
Yeah. And how Pearl Harbor happened is ships weren't out there looking, and they just bombed, the actual harbor. And after that, we had a bunch of ships lined up there.
Yeah, and we weren't in the war at that period yet. So that's what pushed us into the world, Pearl Harbor. And that's what put us in the war. We weren't expecting Japan to attack because we hadn't entered the war. There was no reason for them to come after us. And they sunk 9 ships, I believe.
It was 9 and they injured 12, I'm pretty sure. I read a book on this in school. I think I read 2. It was I Survived, and then a nonfiction whole fat book about the Pearl Harbor attack, and it had stuff from, like, what was it? What they interviewed people and stuff.
So they got the U.S. Arizona, Oklahoma, California, West Virginia, and Utah. All those are ships, by the way. We named the battleships after our states. They damaged 15 and sunk 5. I was right. Yeah, 5. And out of what was our current fleet of 102 ships, only 21 were damaged. And they attacked Pearl Harbor with, I don't know, do you know how many fighters they attacked Pearl Harbor with?
I'm pretty sure it was a lot. Like, quite a bit.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I think it was in the 30s to the 40s.
353 Japanese aircraft were
Wow.
used to bomb Pearl Harbor. That's a little bit over.
Never mind. I was wrong. I was thinking of us nuking Japan. My bad. So there were about 350 aircraft, and then the first wave included 183 planes, and the second wave included 170. And they all carried some sort of torpedo, some sort of ammunition, and then the wild thing is, Japanese, especially around this time period, they were one of the most determined nations. They would die for their job.
Yeah.
They would die to complete their job. So if they were shooting things out at Pearl Harbor and they got out of ammo, they would dive into the ships. That's the kamikazes. And one of the fun facts about that is when they left Japan, those planes could carry enough fuel to get back to Japan, but they left Japan with just enough fuel to make it to Pearl Harbor and fight. Mm-hmm. They didn't have enough fuel to get back. And they did that because they knew they would not come back. And what I think, if I was on Japan's side and I was one of the people organizing the attack, I would have had them go with full fuel. Because fuel explodes.
Yeah.
Especially plane fuel. And if they had gone with full fuel, then they could have caused a little bit more damage. But that's just me. I don't know what they were thinking. Maybe they didn't want anyone returning if they hadn't completed their task. I could see that. And there's a term that people, not as much nowadays, but people used, and it was lying on your sword. And this came from Japanese samurais. If they didn't complete the mission, they would stick their sword in the ground with the blade up and then kill themselves by falling on it.
That's pretty brutal.
If they did not finish the mission, they were so determined to complete the mission that they would not let themselves go back home as a failure. They would just lay on their sword. So that's where that originated from.
The thing is, you're like, what was it? They sunk how many battleships?
5. Sunk 5.
Okay. But also, those battleships are big.
They're huge.
And
of course they needed 353.
Yeah. And, like, one torpedo probably wouldn't sink it. It would just kind of, they could probably patch that. But, like, it would probably take 3 of them to destroy
It'd take
ship.
more than 3.
And, you just gotta imagine that going down. Like, seeing that happen. That's, like,
They were big.
Crazy.
These ships that they sunk were to put it in perspective of viewers, these ships, some of them were twice as long as football fields. Mm-hmm. Twice as long. And some of them were just as wide as a football field and carried huge guns. Like, some of the guns on these things were 300 millimeter. That's taking a ruler going from the 0 in centimeters to the 30.
Yeah.
That's 300 millimeters. And then some of the biggest ships carried 40 centimeter guns. So 400 millimeter as the biggest. But those were not for air targets. The air targets were, could range from 20 to 50 mil. Which was pretty big.
Yeah,
that's 5 millimeters of metal around, not the length. 5 centimeters across. Not from back to tip, which is wild. So, yeah, that's what our podcasts are going to mostly consist of. We're going to talk about military stuff, and for that, you want to leave it off with one more conversation about anything?
Yeah, let's go ahead and do German aircraft.
German aircraft. Okay, so what do you like about them?
They're like, now they're not that good, but back in like World War II, they had very good planes. Like, they were unbeaten in the skies until we made like the P-51, the P-47, which is still like, if they went head on head 1v1, it's like an equal chance that one of them would win, because that's like, it's just that maneuverable, and that's a good percentage against the BF-109. Yeah, so I don't know about like how they got them like that, but
the BF-109 could take down 2 P-51s, the earlier ones. The P-51s got better and stood a chance against the BF-109s towards the end of the war, but towards the beginning, when they just started making these could take down multiple aircraft with very little death and very little damage. They could take down 5 aircraft and return home. One of them.
We still hold, but you're like, they could take down a lot of aircraft and head home, but some of them still got shot down. But the F-15 in our country never got shot down. So, like, we still hold the record for that. We are one of the only countries to have an aircraft that has never been shot down before. Here's another one. The Junkers Ju-87, right? Yeah.
It was a dive bomber, and they had it from late World War I to late World War II. That's how long they used it.
And it had sirens on it. Like, the airfield would just be chilling, right? And then you would hear, they called them the sirens of hell, was it?
I think so, yeah.
And if you heard that, you know what it was at that time. And they carried either 4 250-pound bombs or 1,000 and then 2 250s. And that's a big bomb for that little plane. It's single engine.
Yeah, it was a big bomb. They had carried some big bombs,
including a back gunner.
And then, towards the end of World War I, beginning World War II, they created a version with 20 mil cannons. Yeah. They had 2 20 mil cannons strapped under the wings. Yeah. Not quite literal, not literally strapped, but they were under the wings.
Yeah. And people nowadays in like War Thunder and those games know it as the boomstick.
Yes, the boomstick. Everyone likes boomstick planes. And then this is probably one of my favorite German aircraft. The Messerschmitt Me-163 Comet, which was the world's first operational rocket-powered plane. And it could fly near Mach 1. It was like sub Mach 1. It had 6 12 mils, and it could barely fit a pilot.
Mm-hmm.
This thing was tiny, but it was so maneuverable. it didn't have elevators.
Mm-mm.
It didn't have a tail stabilizer. It had a vertical. It had a rudder, but it didn't have
It was
It didn't have
basically
elevators.
a bomb with wings.
Basically, yeah. And then they would use that, and usually they would go out, and there weren't many of these made, but they were used quite a bit towards the end. They would take them, and they would go out, and they didn't have a lot of fuel because they were rocket powered. Yeah. And they would get to where they were fighting and shoot people down, and they were often left with not enough fuel to return home. So they would go back, if they could return home, they would go back and get as close as they could get. They would run out of fuel, and then they would have to glide. And then on takeoff, the pilot disconnects the landing gear.
Yeah, they just fall off.
So there's a wheel on the back, and then there's two pretty big wheels in the front, but those were just attached to the aircraft. Temporarily. When they got to a high enough speed, they got off the ground, then dropped the landing gear. They pulled a lever to drop the landing gear, and they just fell off the plane back to the ground. So you're thinking, wait, how are they going to land? So that's the thing. When they were gliding and they got close to the ground, they would lower their landing gear, but it'd be a sled. Not landing gear, not wheels.
Yeah, a little belly
It would
thing.
be a sled that's stored in the belly of the aircraft. And it was just one ski.
And I'm like,
no brakes.
Wait, well, if they can do that, why didn't they just have the landing gear retract? You know? That was already invented.
But that was... They were trying to make it as light as possible so it could go as far and as fast as possible. So they didn't feel like wasting area on retractable landing gear. They just thought, oh, we can make a sled on this thing. Mm-hmm. So that's what they did.
No thought of just retracting the landing gear.
And to power the aircraft, they're not literally push it along through the sky. Like, electrically power, make all the instruments work. There was a small propeller on the front of it that would be turned by air.
Like, it was tiny.
And it would record your airspeed. It would generate electricity.
It
was tiny.
Wind turbine.
But it was a tiny wind turbine, essentially. And that's what powered the electrical components on the aircraft.
Yeah, it's just...
Do you have one more aircraft you would like to talk about?
The duckbill aircraft.
The duckbill. Do you remember what it's called?
HS-129. Go ahead and try to...
HS-129.
Yes.
Tell me a little bit about that aircraft.
So, it is twin engine, built like a German plane. Yep, there it is. It's built like a German plane, and it has a yellow nose, which is on the BF-109 and the early JUs, like the 88. But it has that, and it has 75mm cannon on the bottom of it that just sticks out, and it's an attack aircraft. But also, when it runs out of ammo, it switches roles, literally, to a
bomber.
Right? That's the next version, but the first version switches to a fighter because it has 4 12 mils on it. I'm like, what is German doing? But here's the thing. If there weren't any targets, like, to attack, they would still send it out to hit bombers. Because one shot from that would
destroy it was a 75mm cannon.
It would decimate a bomber.
And to put this into perspective, that's 7.5 centimeters around. That's just around out of the barrel. That's the circumference of the widest part.
Like,
not even the length, just the circumference.
Yeah, they're like geekers. That's not very good, but carried by a twin-engine plane.
Like, okay, so 75 mils were used on most tanks this day, with a lot of recoil. This thing, every shot it fired, it would slow down 1 or 2 miles an hour.
Yeah. The recoil
From one
crazy.
shot. And it would dip down a little bit. And to, compare the size of the gun, if you know aircraft, the nose is round on most aircraft. Well, on the duckbill, it's round until you get to the bottom.
Yeah.
Then it cuts off. It goes back, then down, and that's where they store the gun, under the nose of the aircraft, back into the plane. And under the nose is the barrel.
Yeah,
it's not even concealed. It's just under the nose.
It's nearly under the pilot where the gun is.
Yes, it's nearly under the pilot. It's a little bit back and down.
Yeah. And the barrel's just sticking forward.
It's just
And
just sticking forward.
The rounds were so heavy that you had to be within 1 kilometer to accurately shoot a target.
Yes, you had to be within a kilometer to accurately hit a target if it's at a standstill.
Yeah.
And then within a mile to even get close to hitting the target. Didn't it carry explosive rounds too for that cannon, or was it just armor piercing?
It was armor piercing for armored targets. Yeah, it was armored targets.
Okay. It says here that the earlier version, the lighter version B2 was called, of course not the American stealth bomber.
Yeah, because that wasn't even...
Could carry a 30 millimeter cannon, and then the heavier 75 millimeter cannon was armed on the B3, which was the next version.
Correct.
And it was called the Handshell HS-129 Panzer Knacker, yeah, right. Panzer Knacker,
which makes sense because tank in German meant, or Panzer in German meant tank.
Yeah, and this is basically saying tank destroyer.
Yeah.
Which makes sense for the 75 millimeter gun. And how many crew did this plane carry?
One. Just one.
One? There wasn't a tail gunner?
Nothing. It was so maneuverable for having a 75 millimeter cannon on front. Like, so maneuverable.
Do you know how heavy that cannon was?
I've no clue. I just know it was a big cannon. It must have been pretty heavy. Oh, yep. Anyways.
Yeah. A lot of people call it the duck-billed airplane, which if you search up a picture of it, it is.
And that is the HS-129, if you're wondering.
Yeah, the HS-129 is the duck-bill plane.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's what we talk about.
Yeah,
that was pretty interesting. Mm-hmm. If you like this,
maybe
follow up.
Yeah, we'll
be making more.
Yeah, we'll be making more until we decide not to, which might be a while until we decide.
We're going to talk about a lot. Yeah. Stealth aircraft, ships, tanks. We're going to have to do our research. But we already know quite a lot. The ships. I
don't know about those.
We don't know a lot about the ships. I do know more about aircraft carriers because I'm into aviation. You're into tanks and bombers.
And a little bit of, bombers.
So we'll be talking about bombers, fighters, attack, cruiser tanks, light tanks, heavy tanks, all vehicles through certain eras, battleships, cruiser ships, light ships, aircraft carriers, destroyers, all those things. We'll talk about APCs, anti-air, a lot of things military related. We'll talk about ballistic missiles, nuclear weapons.
Military soldiers do, like Marines, all those.
Marines, their kind of training and stuff like that. We'll be mostly focused on weapons and vehicles because those are cool.
Yeah.
We'll talk about how a nuke works, or how a ballistic missile works, or what happens in an autoloader for a cannon. So yeah, we're going to be talking about...
Or how the auto stabilizer.
The auto stabilizer.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll talk about all that stuff
A different time.
On a different time, but on this podcast. So if you're interested in that kind of stuff, just listen.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's it for today. See you later.
Channel. See ya.